So this section of notes is going to be some foundational information about pathogens and infectious diseases. So the first thing, and I know some of this was in previous sections, is the idea of a transmissible versus a non-transmissible disease. A transmissible disease is easily spread from one person to another. So in current times, COVID, again, it's transmissible from one person to another. That is spread by air, so by aerosol or in the air. Originally, if you remember when COVID first came out, they thought it was by contact, so surfaces. So if I'm infected and I touch something and you touch it and then you touch your face or eyes, you could get it that way. So some diseases will spread by contact, some in water. So if I have a disease and like my fecal matter usually gets into that water and you come in contact with that water or drink or ingest that water, you could get the disease. Some diseases spread by like sexual contact. But basically, I'm going to be able to, if I have that disease, I could transmit it to you. And so typically transmissible diseases are caused by pathogens, which they could be bacterial, viral, or other microorganisms that can cause the disease. So again, by air is more like COVID and the flu. Strep would be by the air. Also, typically, hepatitis B is like contact with someone else's blood. So that could be more of a sexual contact, but also by surface contact. It could even be in dried blood that you could come in contact with it. HIV/AIDS is sexual contact. Cholera and some of these other waterborne diseases are by water, spread by the water. Typically, or if you're in contact with fecal matter that has cholera in it. So again, this is the idea of transmissible. If I have it, I can spread it to you. A non-transmissible disease is not really spread from one person to another. So if I'm around a person who has diabetes, I'm not going to be concerned that I could get diabetes from them or lung cancer from them. So those would be non-transmissible diseases. So transmissible diseases, again, those are the ones for pandemics and all of that, which we're far too familiar with at this point. So when we now look at these different pathogens or diseases that are in the category of transmissible, I'm going to have waterborne and tropical. So waterborne, it's going to be spread by drinking contaminated water or again, contact with contaminated feces. And several examples of those: cholera, E. coli, dysentery, hepatitis A, typhoid. Those are all waterborne diseases. Tropical diseases are typically spread by insects. Zika, the plague, Zika is spread by mosquitoes. West Nile is spread by mosquitoes. The plague actually was spread by fleas on rodents and on rats. But those would be like tropical diseases more so. So those are your kind of those two categories of, so we have diseases, transmissible, non-transmissible, and under transmissible, again, transmissible is spread by pathogens. There's the disease causing like bacteria or viruses. And under that, there's some spread by water, waterborne, and some spread more or less by insects. And that would be tropical. The other ones like COVID or like the flu, colds, those are transmissible, but those aren't waterborne or tropical. Those are going to just kind of spread in different areas, person to person. Those are going to be impacted more really by population density. We're going to go back to the idea of poop versus pee. And so I'm going to actually move that there. So big idea, if you remember, poop or feces or fecal matter is dead red blood cells, undigested food, and bacteria. And in that bacteria, there's typically E. coli, which can be a disease-causing bacteria. And if I have a waterborne disease, my poop will contain that waterborne disease. And then if my poop gets into a water supply, you could then, if you are in just that water supply and it's untreated, you are very likely to get that waterborne disease. Urine is sterile. And it's waste from the cells. This is why when you go to the doctor, they have you pee in a cup, because that's really a good snapshot of what's happening inside your cells. Sterile means no bacteria is actually what sterile means. And so this image is just kind of showing, again, your kidneys filter your blood. They're taking the waste product from, other than the CO2, they're taking the waste, nitrogenous wastes, meaning nitrogen containing wastes. They're taking those and then they're putting, filtering it out, and then it goes into your bladder, and then you excrete it that way. So the issue is not urine or pee, it's the poop, because of, again, the bacteria in the poop. All right. So what we see here is water treatment. So this, we're not going to worry. This is drinking water treatment. Basically, you're removing particles and then this disinfection stage. This disinfection stage is killing bacteria. In developing countries, we basically use water treatment and we disinfect and kill bacteria. And so we don't really get concerned about waterborne diseases very much because of this is happening in most urban areas. And in rural areas, assuming the aquifers aren't contaminated, in rural areas, people are typically, their water is going to be safe to drink. I'm going to click on this link here though. And this link has 11 facts about the developing world and just a couple of them to point out. 884 million people in the world lack access to safe water supplies, and more than 840,000 people die each year from a water-related disease. So you can see in developing countries, and number 6 here, number 5, every minute a child dies of a water-related disease. That's that waterborne disease. And basically that death is by diarrhea. They dehydrate and then they can't keep water down. They dehydrate and their body functions shut down. So diarrhea caused by inadequate drinking water, sanitation, and hand hygiene kills approximately 842,000 people every year globally. So this is that idea again of why waterborne disease and clean water is so, so important. And it tends to be an issue in developing countries where there isn't treatment of drinking water. And additionally, item number 9, about 80% of sewage in developing countries is discharged untreated, polluting lakes, rivers, and coastal areas. So people are going to more likely be in contact with other people's fecal matter. More people are going to probably have these waterborne diseases, and it's going to get spread. So this is where the more poverty-stricken an area is, or a country, typically, the more you're going to see these waterborne diseases there. So this is why it's important to like what type of waste is associated with waterborne diseases. It's like fecal matter. And again, it's that bacteria in it. And where is it a concern in developing countries or in more poverty-stricken areas? Because they don't have the sewage treatment, they don't have the water treatment. Again, money limits them. They maybe are more rural, a lot of different areas, or a lot of different issues associated with that. A case study, or here you can see here, lack of sanitary waste disposal. So like disposal of our poop results in contaminated water supplies and more waterborne disease spread. This is the leading causes of death globally. And number 8, you'll see is diarrheal diseases. And again, they're using communicable, non-communicable. We use transmissible, non-transmissible, but again, can be spread. And here, globally, number 8 killing people in the world is diarrheal diseases. But in the developed world, people don't even think about that. So you can see this is a big issue globally. Daily temperatures. So the last item here is tropical climate change impacts tropical diseases. So as temperatures get warmer, again, tropical diseases are typically spread by mosquitoes. And so since they're typically spread by mosquitoes, as conditions get warmer, you're going to spread more from the equator areas that are warmer, and the mosquitoes will survive. And if the mosquitoes survive, they can be around like Zika and West Nile to infect more people with those diseases. So we'll see an increase in these tropical diseases as we have this global warming. It'll spread from equatorial regions further out. You'll have more areas because what kills off mosquitoes is a freeze or a frost. And if they don't get that freeze or frost, you're not going to kill the insects. And then if you don't kill the insects off, you're going to end up with more of those diseases being spread. So this is a concern about climate change and tropical diseases because of the insect spread. That is a summary of that. The last thing I was going to talk about, but didn't really, is the idea of like romaine lettuce. You've maybe heard about romaine lettuce being impacted. And there's been outbreaks where it's been contaminated. And basically that contamination goes back to E. coli here. And that E. coli from cow manure. So there have been issues with romaine lettuce being contaminated. And again, it's runoff from cows. And then where they're growing the romaine lettuce is just in that same watershed. It runs off and then it gets contaminated. So those are some of the big ideas with pathogens and things you'll hear in the news and why what all these different diseases and how they're all connected. I hope this was a helpful explanation for you.